Hey everyone, this is RayRob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob.
And this is our new podcast, A Copy of a Copy.
A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy.
That's right, everyone. We're back with a brand new episode of A Copy of a Copy. Ray, tell everyone what it is that we do here.
Well, Rob, what we do with A Copy of a Copy is we go check out an original movie, and then we go and check out a remake of said movie, and we compare them. We found some very interesting ones so far. We have found ones that we have called a stealth remake. We have found some that we call a cash grab. We have some cultural improvement type ones. I don't know if we named that one. I'm thinking of Body Snatchers.
Oh, that's true.
Do we have a cool name for that one?
I don't know if we have a cool name for
No.
that one, but that like cultural synergy, or if
Yeah.
you want, or something like that. Yeah.
It's timeless almost, so they could remake it at any time they wanted. And we kind of have the same thing here. I don't know if we have a catchy catchphrase for this one, but it does have its own category.
Absolutely. Today, Ray and I are going to be comparing the classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory,
Can't be beat.
starring Gene Wilder, with the remake by Tim Burton, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes, and we are we're gonna see how I like this one anymore, because I remember not enjoying it very much. But I think first time watching it, comparing it so much to the original,
Yeah.
I think that was unfair to do that
Sure.
to the movie. But tell everybody, why are we picking this one? Why, what is the angle we're coming at?
Well, while it was divisive when it came out, and I can completely understand why, I think there is an argument to be made that the remake was actually more faithful to the source material.
Okay.
So, and I do think we see that in remakes sometimes, where a remake of an original that are both, adaptations of a book or something else, and the remake is sometimes more accurate than the original.
Yeah, I get from a studio perspective that can be why they can greenlight a project. Like we do have a different angle at this movie. We're gonna, like you just said, we're gonna do the version that's closer to the book. Even though it does have that going for it, there are still, when you remake such an iconic movie
It's true.
as Willy Wonka, you're gonna have some huge tasks to overtake. And it's kind of like when we talked about Aladdin, when they had to redo the genie, Robin Williams' genie, and what Will Smith was going to have to do to even come close to that is such a hard challenge. It would make me not want to even remake the movie. Kind of have the same deal here with Gene Wilder and Johnny Depp.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing that I would say is, in this version compared to Aladdin, is they tried to do something different here.
Got to give it credit, because I think that's where we thought Will Smith fell short.
Right.
Was he was too similar to Robin Williams, and it just looked like it didn't compare.
Absolutely. But again, it was a divisive movie. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people that hated it. I didn't hate it, but I can understand why you didn't like it. Again, it was, for growing up, the original with Gene Wilder was the staple in my house.
Right.
I could not watch it without a bar of chocolate in my hand, a Hershey bar that I would absolutely 100% every time wait until Charlie opens up the bar with the golden ticket in it before I open mine. So there's a very,
It's a movie that's
nostalgic grasp that I have with it.
It's almost even too, like, for me, it's not even that it's just nostalgic, because it's relevant to me because I quote it so much.
Sure.
Like, it's like some of those lines are like, if somebody messes up, like, "Wrong, sir, you
Right.
are wrong, sir." Like, it's just built into your brain. You've watched it so many times.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's part of the nomenclature, man.
But I take it you haven't watched the remake in a while.
Just once.
Just once.
Just the
Oh,
original
okay.
time. So
Well,
I
there we
do
go.
yeah, I do feel like I'm gonna like it more because I'm good now. I have low expectations.
Sure.
So I'm sure we'll be able to surpass, but it will be interesting to kind of compare the two now.
Definitely. Well, that is what we are going to do right now. So what Ray and I invite you to do is to pause the podcast, check out both Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and then come back as Ray and I break down both of these movies and see what's going on here.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. Wait, films? There are two? How long is this supposed to take? I've got places to be, you know. Ray and Rob will be right back when they're done watching the films.
All right, guys, we are back. Rob and I have watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and we watched Charlie and the
We
Chocolate
watched
Factory.
Willy and Charlie.
But before we really break this down, Rob, since we do always kind of try to talk about on Copy of a Copy what type of remake this is or why they remade this movie, I did see this one quote from Gene Wilder, and this was during production of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He hadn't seen the movie,
Okay.
but during production, he said in an interview with the Daily Telegraph, he basically accused the filmmaker simply for remaking Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for money, basically calling it a cash grab, which
Okay.
Johnny Depp did defend, saying no, this was they were doing something different with the book. But Gene Wilder thought this would fall under the cash grab kind
So
of.
this is it. That's it. We're done then. Gene Wilder.
Yeah,
he,
I mean-
he nailed it. So we're done.
I
Is that what
would,
you're saying?
if Gene Wilder walked through that door and said this is a cash grab, I'm saying yes, sir.
Well, Gene Wilder was a treasure, so I could definitely get behind that. But don't get me wrong, I love the original.
Sure.
It will always hold that special place in my heart, and Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka will always be iconic in my brain. But I am going to sit here and defend the remake just a little bit here.
Because you are a book reader of the
I am.
book.
I am. And, we kind of talked about this a little bit in the before section. It's there is that kind of book accurate remake,
Right.
or maybe source material accurate remake.
Right.
And because this is not the first time that a remake has happened that is just working off of the same source material, where one is an adaptation, the second one is the same adaptation of take another bite of the apple, if
Sure.
you will. You're maybe trying to get a little bit closer to the original, and after rewatching the two, I mean, it's undeniable that there are things that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory did that are they're just more closely accurate to Roald Dahl's book.
That's right. And we're going to talk about that kind of stuff. I think, I think something maybe I want to touch on first too before we get into the movies is one other reason why I think you would, if you're a production company, you were going to want to remake this, or at least one thought that I think that they went through and considered was the Tim Burtoning of this. So let's talk about that first.
Yeah, okay,
Because,
that's fair.
yeah, there definitely was especially around this time, people like, well, let's redo something, but have Tim Burton do it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've always loved Tim Burton. I grew up watching Tim Burton movies, so I always, again, have a special place in my heart for Tim Burton. But I can honestly say he's gotten to a point now in his career where he is a style more than a director.
Right.
And it's unfair. And it's not even, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he makes bad movies.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of that. But it's clear, because they did this, Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows. I mean, it was just like, okay, we want to make this movie, but we want to make it in the style of Tim Burton. And, Charlie, I think, was the first that did that. If I remember, I'm looking it real fast. Yeah, I think especially of the 3 that I just mentioned, that was the first. So it kind of maybe in a way kicked that off.
Yeah.
If you want to say that, because before that he made Big Fish, which was a completely original movie, or it was an adaptation, I think. But either way, or no, it was original because I think John August wrote the screenplay, if I remember correctly. Like I said, it was easy, I think, for people to dismiss this movie simply based on that.
Yeah, it almost like you said, it's unfair because Tim Burton makes a lot of really good movies, and I love Big Fish. So like,
Right.
wasn't like he had gone stale at this time of his career.
Right.
But it is almost kind of like a negative connotation a little bit. Where you're like, yeah, well, it's just a Tim Burton version of that because
Right.
it's just like you said, so stylized.
Yeah.
But I do think the production company wanted that, and so they got it, and it feels Tim Burton-y for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, absolutely. And you know, and in rewatching it, while there are those moments, it didn't go as far in that direction as it could have.
Yeah.
Every building isn't built on a slant.
Right.
You know, or
Charlie's
anything
house
like
is.
that. Charlie's house is. But, you know, I went and I got my handy copy, if anybody can hear, of the book, just to kind of have it with me as we're doing this conversation. And as I was flipping through it, Quentin Blake, who did the illustrations for the book, I flipped right to the page of the house in the book, and it is almost identical to what they did in the movie. So there you go. I mean, it goes to that point of, you know,
source material.
So
yeah, well, so let's talk about some of the differences, or let's just hit the big one, the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Willy Wonka.
Yeah, and I think that was if it wasn't the style of Tim Burton, the number one complaint I remember of people talking about this movie, it was Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka.
Yeah, and Johnny Depp was super on fire this time
Yes.
with Pirates. Like, you know, his interpretation of Jack Sparrow was just like so iconic that people are like, anything Johnny Depp touches is going to be gold. Like, of course he's going to go and crush this version of Willy Wonka. And, you know, say of it what you will, you know, I don't love it. It feels too maybe aloof for me at times, where I think when you watch Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and you're watching Gene Wilder, he's very weird, but I think when you rewatch it like multiple times, you can kind of get this sense that Willy Wonka is more testing the audience, like not the viewing audience, but the audience in front of him, like the kids and the parents. Like, it's all a test, so everything is a challenge. Like when he's, you know, on the Wonka machine, I can't remember what they call it, where like they're all getting sprayed with foam. Like, he knows he's spraying you with foam. It wasn't on accident. He's seeing your responses, and you know, at least that's the feeling that I get when I watch it. Where like when I watch Johnny Depp, it feels less so of that. It almost just feels like he's just being weird to be weird, or like he just is uncomfortable around people and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree with either one of those points. I will say, you know, as far as the crux of my arguments, you know, the book arguments, the truth of the Willy Wonka character really lies in between the two for the book. So I think Gene Wilder is a little, in rewatching, is a little too soft, you know, compared to the book. Like he is and that could really just be because it's Gene Wilder.
Sure.
You know, like Gene Wilder is just, I mean, it's like seeing a heart of gold personified.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there is more of a nefarious nature to Willy Wonka in the book than what Gene Wilder plays him to be, but not as weird as they were trying to do with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So Depp's performance, I can agree, like even after the rewatch, it does kind of take it a little too far.
Yeah.
And I will talk about that at various points in this conversation about how, you know, with the Burtonization, if you will, of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory source material, there's some stuff that hits the nail on the head, and then there's some stuff that goes just too far into that realm. And I think you could make the argument easily that Johnny Depp's performance is part of that.
Yeah. And we're not really here to say which one's better or worse.
No, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And you know, if you know what, I'll say it right now. I will always choose the original on this one. Like, I grew up, you know, we both did, on the original. It will always be the number one place in my heart. I'm more maybe playing devil's advocate a little bit here,
I think that's fair.
And because I am such a huge fan of the books as well.
Well, like I assumed, this was the first time, I think I already said, but the first time I've seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in 20 years. I definitely found it more digestible now than I did the first time.
Sure, yeah.
Just because the expectations were what they were. Where obviously since 2005, I've seen Willy Wonka, the original version, many times. Since then. But so let's talk about some of the differences again, not just to compare and try to say this one sucked or they shouldn't have changed this, but you know, like we do on Copy of a Copy, just, you know, they made these changes. We want to know why and think about why they did them, and we're, you know, we might say good choice or bad choice, but we're not necessarily comparing in that, you know, trying to drag down one of the movies over the other or anything like that. But
Sure.
I think one of the first changes you see, and I think this, to me, I think actually this works in the new version is they fill out Charlie's family more.
Right.
I imagine the dad is in the book. I
The
have not
dad,
read the
yeah,
book.
the dad is in the book. So that was a change for the original that he did not have a dad. So yes, he did have a dad in the book.
So he had a dad, but we just never see him.
Right, we just never see exactly.
He
Everybody
wasn't
has a dad.
yeah.
But yeah, so and I think that does help. I think the Mr. Bucket character is very endearing in the movie, you know, with his job at the toothpaste factory and all of that, you know, and bringing him home the little scraps to be able to make the model of I think all of that stuff worked really well and helped endear Charlie as well to you, but also his dad, because clearly he cares so much for Charlie and only can provide so much for him.
Right. You're like, you know, housing 4 decrepit old people who just won't die.
Just get up, go to work.
I keep
man.
thinking of like Monty Python, Holy Grail, like dragging them out, putting them on the death carts.
Bring out your dead.
He's dead. No, I'm
not dead yet.
Yeah. He will be soon. He says he's not dead.
But he will be soon. Look at him any minute now.
Yeah. And I think they do a better job of like, what I appreciate is they don't necessarily do a better job of Charlie's grandpa. I like the grandpa probably the same in both. I thought they were fine. But I like that they actually have a reason for why Charlie picks Grandpa Joe. Like, you know, Grandpa Joe used to work there. Grandpa Joe, where in the original, he's just like, I hate you other 3, I'm taking Joe. Like, he gives the other ones no thought of mine.
Well, yeah. And I like how, you know, obviously in the original one, Jack Anderson.
Yes.
Yeah, Jack Anderson. You know, the whole... Albertsons, thank you, Albertsons. Mine just went blank for a bit. You did the whole song, you know, and we'll talk a little bit about that too, you know, about the musical element of it. But like this, you know, so he got his song and like getting out of bed,
right?
Like that was like the whole thing is him being getting out of bed. Whereas like
in the new 20 years,
right? But in like the new one, he just jumps right up. Yeah. He's like, let's go.
Yeah. Well, I will say it's kind of ambiguous too. And like the first one, like
he said, "Brickin' SOB." I knew you could get out of bed.
Well, like in the original, Grandpa Joe hadn't got out of bed in 20 years, but he kept having these chocolate bars that he gave to Charlie. Like, here, take this chocolate bar I bought for you. Like, what? How do you buy this? You don't have like Amazon Prime delivering this to your house.
Sure.
So you must have snuck out of bed. But,
sure.
But yeah. So that was one thing. So the family I do think was an upgrade, and of course, you know, this movie's getting to the new one. It's 20 years old now, but the newer one is that
the remake.
You know, Wonka's finding a family, so they're kind of doing more with the ending there. But you mentioned the music,
right?
Where like the original feels much more like a musical,
right? But
the newer one, it only has the Oompa Loompa songs. But they actually are true to the book, right?
Right. Yes, the lyrics are true to the Loompa Loompa songs in the book, and then otherwise they rely very heavily on Elfman's score, which again, it's Tim Burton, so obviously he's working with Danny Elfman, and it shows. But again, it kind of goes to show how they are trying to stick to the source material in that way.
Yeah. Now, what about the Oompa Loompas? Are they not orange in the book? Was that? Because that seems like a weird choice in the movie that they just went and made them orange for no reason. And it seemed like it would be a weird choice to not make them orange if that is book accurate when this newer version was made to be book accurate.
Right. Yeah. No, they weren't orange. Like as you see them in the movie, that is not how they present.
Yeah. They were just kind of natives of that Oompa Loompa land.
Right. Exactly. And so it's kind of almost maybe a mix, if you will, but they are a little bit more wild in the book. So yeah, that one again is kind of like they both wanted. My guess is when they did Charlie, they didn't want to stray too far from the original Oompa Loompas. One, because again they're iconic,
very
kind
iconic.
of a thing, and they're like, okay, well let's go with that, but maybe so when they first they do the flashback, which is in the book of him Wonka going to Loompa Land and like getting the Oompa Loompas and all of that. So that part, how they're dressed is more accurate to the book, and I think just more of like how they are all throughout the book, as opposed to getting these like crazy flight suits,
right,
that
and
Deep Roy wears,
and being orange,
or being orange in the originals. Like,
But so that and that was one of those things I think too, like originally that's hard to digest because they're way smaller.
Right.
In the newer version, them not being orange with green hair, kind of just felt like this is not what I remember.
Right.
But you have to
And I think that's
just remember it.
right, and I think that's kind of the hard part is, you're remaking something that is just so ingrained in popular culture, especially for the group of people that were digesting it at the time,
Right.
in 2005 when this came out. Now, granted, and this you can make with an argument for a lot of remakes, is finding a new audience. Now, our
Yeah.
generation is clearly sharing Willy Wonka, the original, with our kids.
Sure.
But our generation was really on the cusp of just having kids at that time, and even then they would have been very small. So
Yeah.
this was still kind of a different 90s baby audience that was watching the 2005.
Yeah. It's an
Charlie and the
interesting
Chocolate
it's an
Factory.
interesting comment to say like that they are trying to find a new audience too, because as the old audience we're like, make this for me, and any change you make needs to be an improvement upon the original, not a push. That can't be worse.
Right.
Everything has to be an improvement, and otherwise I don't like I question why you would even change it. But I'm being a toxic fan with those thoughts.
Right, obviously. And like I said, it's going to be a fine line to walk, you talk about Gene Wilder's comment about it being a cash grab and just finding the new audience. I remember at the time when this movie came out that places like Hot Topic
Yeah.
had all kinds of
Right.
like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory inspired clothes and things like that, like Willy's glasses, like his crazy round glasses that
Right.
he wore. I remember they totally had those at like Hot Topic, and so they really were well, I feel like the original was like really trying to nail the teen, or I'm sorry, the young child
Yeah.
audience. I do, in certain regards, wonder if Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was meant for a tween audience.
I can see that.
You know what I mean?
Definitely see that. Pretty much, when you think of the Chocolate Factory movies, you think about how the kids get dismissed from the factory.
Right.
Augustus falls in the river. Violet turns violent. The one that they changed.
Violet.
Yeah, Mike TV gets teleported.
Right.
The one that they changed from the original version, and again, I believe this to be more accurate in the book, was Veruca.
Right. Which
She
is
was
that's
she
correct.
fell. She was a bad egg in the original version. She
Right.
went on the egg testing machine and it dropped her down the chute.
Right.
And in this one, it was a room full of squirrels denutting.
Right. Which is book accurate. That
Right.
is what happened, and that would you could boil that simply down to technology.
Probably, yeah.
Like they would have been working with live squirrels in the original, and there was no way that they were
Yeah.
going to be able to make that work and look good on film. So they obviously decided to go with geese, and it worked out much better. Whereas in the original or in the remake, they had the wonderful world of CGI. So
I know I've read or heard that they used like 40 real squirrels, but I cannot tell what parts were the real
and
squirrels.
I can believe that. I
Yeah.
absolutely can believe that they did this kind of
In parts of it,
right,
yeah.
exactly, this mix of digital and real squirrels. But I'm sure that the 40 real squirrels were more for like certain close-ups,
Yeah.
and things like that, because you can especially with the cameras, you can shoot far enough away, get the squirrel to run up and like get a
Yeah.
good shot of its face and be like, okay, that works.
Yeah.
That kind of
So, but I think that's a push for me. Like, which one's better or worse? I think it's just like the squirrels were cool, the geese is fine. Like
yeah.
it's a push. Like I don't mind either change. Actually, I guess I prefer like do one of the kids different if we're going to remake the movie. So if you have the
Sure.
opportunity to follow the book closer, then do it.
Right. Well, and it's an interesting possible conversation about just terminology, because Americans are much more apt to use the term bad egg.
Yeah.
So it probably resonates more with a US
Yeah.
audience
A bad nut.
right, like
Maybe it's outdated or
yeah,
English.
or more British
Yeah.
term. So I think that I could see them also looking at it from that way.
Yeah.
Like it's just a term that American audiences are going to resonate with more. So let's just go with that.
Now the biggest change for me is in the original version we had the evil Mr. Slugsworth, the rival company
Right.
trying to steal the everlasting gobstopper. all the kids are being tested, and whoever can deliver the gobstopper to them
Mm-hmm.
is going to become a millionaire or something, or whatever it's going to be. Where that's not in the original, or I'm guessing the book at all.
Well, I mean, no, not in like the specific person, but
Yeah.
like
Slugsworth is
like
a rival
right,
company,
the rival
yeah.
company's right, but is like going around like getting everybody.
Yeah.
No, like that's not
Yeah.
like that.
Again, like this is much more of a everything's a test for the kids, much more of a test than the original. So I like I do like that. I think even as like I'm trying to compare like as fairly as I can, like this idea of Slugworth in like the back of the kid's mind, them all trying to steal the everlasting gobstopper,
Right.
and then Charlie turning it in at the end.
Right.
Like that is to me the best thing that Charlie can do in that moment. Like you're
As
pissed.
far as like being a pure soul.
Right, as far as being a pure soul, turning that in, even though you just basically got cursed out by Willy Wonka.
You're wrong, sir.
Not turning it in.
Wrong.
Now they did. Now one thing I think I don't know if I like as much is the Charlie and the fizzy drink, because it does have him do something bad too, and you know I kind of like in the original, or not the original, the new one that is more active book, where like Charlie's just a pure soul throughout. What do you think?
Yeah, no, and I, again, as a fan of the book, I can agree.
Yeah.
But I don't.
It's
works,
a fun scene,
right? It's a fun scene, and it works, like you said, kind of for this arc that they're sending all the kids on.
Yeah.
You know, and
they all failed the temptation.
And I do think that I think you can make the argument that having Charlie have a flaw is still fine. That like shows that like not every kid is perfect. You know, sometimes kids are gonna goof around, but there's still a point.
Still
you know
a
what
good
I mean?
kid.
Right? He's still a good kid, and I think having that reveal at the end in the original where he gives back the gobstopper, it works, and I can agree with that.
And maybe it's a way of Charlie saying he's sorry too. So that's another So all right, change my mind. I like the fizzy drink.
Well, I mean, you can like both. Like again, that's not what this isn't about necessarily.
You've talked me into it, Rob. You've twisted my arm. What about stylistically, Rob? I know, like obviously we've mentioned Tim Burton has an influence on this movie, but do you feel like the original, this newer version compared to the original, there's something different there in regards to the style and genuineness to the book?
So it's okay. So like Roald Dahl as an author is not, while he writes kids books, he doesn't write down to kids, and his worlds are very dark, but in a very Roald Dahl way. Right. I will go out and say confidently that do I feel like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original, stylistically feels like the book? No. So I'm gonna it's might be a harsh hot take for a movie that I love. So everybody keep that in mind. I love this movie and I will choose this movie over the remake any day. But stylistically compared to the books, no. I don't think it goes nearly far enough. I think the closest it gets is the tunnel sequence.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's about as close as it gets. But do I feel like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory nails it completely? No. I do think, as I said earlier, I do think Tim Burton kind of goes a little too far sometimes. So I think about like the opening scene when they get to the factory and the show. Yeah, the puppet. It's not puppets, but you know what I mean, like the animatronics.
It's like their version of a Small World.
Right, and it like all like blows up and go like fire and go like that. There is whiffs of Dahl in that, but I do think it kind of goes a little bit too far. Almost
I will
to the
say,
point.
I think my funniest laugh is when they're going through the glass elevator. He's like, "This is the hospital for burnt puppets. It's newly."
Right.
Like, that was my probably most out loud laugh.
And I get that, so it works. Like for as far as the context of the movie, it totally works. But I do feel like the world is probably somewhere a little bit in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think Dahl is very incisive with his dark nature. So something Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, the BFG, Matilda, the Witches. I mean, you can go down the list, and each one of them has a really dark thread that goes through all of the books. And I think, while Willy Wonka kind of shirked it a little bit more in lieu of, whimsy and, like I said, like the musical element of it and just, and again, it's not like these dark, obviously something bad happens to all the kids.
Right.
And, well, there is one element now that I will mention in just a second. But, the remake, I think it feels darker. And then obviously that's the Burton element too, but I do think that's them just embracing the book a little bit more. But one thing, you don't see the kids at the end of the original.
Right.
And
I do
he just
like that.
mentions that Willie just mentions that they're all fine and they're going to go home and be all their terrible selves, all or whatever.
Yes.
In the remake, you see them and
Leaving.
you see like
They don't all look fine.
and they don't all look fine. And that is 100% from the book, with the Great Glass Elevator flying over and seeing the kids below and the having those ramifications of their actions. Like, that is 100% out of the book. So I do think in that regard, like, like I said, it embraces the darkness enough.
Yeah.
I this is completely separate movie, different experience, but I know his estate, the Roald Dahl estate. I think maybe it was his wife or daughter. I can't remember. Basically said that the Fantastic Mr. Fox, Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox, is probably the closest thing they've ever felt like to the source material of their father.
Interesting.
Stylistically, tonally, the whole deal. So, and
And
that's even not
animation
as
helps,
right,
but
and it does. But I will say,
James
like,
and
even
Giles
that's
Peach
not
was-
as dark as some of his other books.
Right.
Like the Fantastic Mr. Fox as a book is not nearly as dark as like I said, The Witches or James and the Giant Peach, and I mean, just again, it's as a writer, he's phenomenal. Mr. Kitty Kaiju is obsessed. He read, I think, every Roald Dahl novel at least twice.
That's cool.
I mean, he is, and I was obsessed with him as well when I was a kid. So it's, as far as his overall influence, obviously, I'm a huge fan. So when I walk into both of these movies, like, there is a reverence for both.
Yeah.
But like I said, the original will always have that special place, even though it doesn't feel necessarily like the book.
And I think that's fair. And so, but speaking of that, it actually leads me to one more point before we try to wrap this up, because we've said many times the type of remake we're calling Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a source material remake.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that they stayed faithful to the source material.
No, and that is absolutely true.
100%.
No, they did not, because they did add the father element to Willy, which I'm not going to lie, I hate. Like, if there was a part that I can say I really dislike about the remake, it's the addition of the Willy Wonka father character.
It seems the laziest.
It's so lazy. He's a
Storytelling.
dentist. Oh, what do you know? He's a dentist.
I wasn't allowed to eat chocolate. I became a chocolate maker.
Yeah, and I will say this, I think there is a reason for this, and I apologize if this is just a touch of a diatribe, but I do feel like, especially right at this era of filmmaking, and it's not that it hasn't continued, but I think it really started right about this time, is when Hollywood just got obsessed with making origin movies.
Yeah, the superhero movies were starting to come around. They're like, everybody needs an origin story now.
Right. And it's just like, I have to explain why this character is the way that they are.
Right.
And while I'm not necessarily opposed to that all the way around, I do feel like it can be incredibly unnecessary. I just, as a quick example, the Halloween, original John Carpenter's Halloween, is a huge favorite of mine, and then Rob Zombie remade it in the mid-2000s.
Right.
That is, it's a movie that it didn't need to be made, because all it was a way to try to give Michael Myers some kind of an origin story.
Yeah.
Michael Myers didn't need an origin story.
Right.
Willy Wonka didn't need an origin story.
No.
But he is who he is. But however, I'm gonna throw a curveball at myself and maybe call myself a little bit of a hypocrite, because I think we've talked about it before. I really like Wonka, the Timothée Chalamet Wonka remake or Wonka prequel. I'm actually okay,
but
so I'm gonna give that.
But I will say, like, that is, to me, that's much more loose of a like calling that a prequel, because they are not trying to fill in every gap. They're not saying this is where I met Slugworth and we became enemies, or this,
Right.
So it's I don't even think there's Oompa Loompas in that movie. There are, yeah. There's the one Oompa
Right,
Loompa,
the
but it's
one
not like
Oompa Loompa.
it's
Yeah.
not like it's him in the jungle finding them. You know, it's
Right.
like so it's very loose. They're not like they don't talk about like why he's so paranoid, and they don't get into any of that stuff. They're very much doing their own thing. I feel
Right.
like in that movie. So, and that's the problem is like that. Like you talk about Solo, or you talk about some of these really bad origin story movies, in my opinion. And I cut Solo some. I can give it some flack or whatever, but like they do overly like. Here's how he got his jacket.
Right.
Here's how he got his name.
Everything
Here's how he got the Millennium
everything
Falcon.
you know and love about this character happened in this 48 hours. It's
Right,
like
exactly. And then you think about like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, like the Joker was so iconic because it shocked so many fans at first because we knew nothing about the
Right.
Joker. We're like, why is this guy so insane? They don't tell us why.
Right, and he
that
keeps
was
changing the story.
Yeah,
It was great.
And that was great about it. And like, so we don't need Willy Wonka to be like, I love chocolate because my father said I couldn't have any.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's lazy.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, and I think that's also part of the difference between the Wonka prequel movie with Timothy Chalamet and what Burton tried to do with the father character in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is like we said earlier, it felt lazy.
Yeah.
It was like the lowest hanging of fruit.
Right.
Oh, he's a dentist. Oh, he wasn't allowed to have candy because he was a dentist. And when he finally was able to have candy, he became obsessed with candy.
Right.
And it's like, okay, can we come up with something maybe a little bit more, a little more pizzazz?
I mean, it's got magical skills that somehow go into the making of this game. Like that,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Very lazy.
Yeah.
So that, to be fair to both sides, we have to say, if you're going to be true to the source material, and that's the reason why you're remaking this movie, as Johnny Depp said,
Right.
then you got to be true to the source material.
Right.
So,
but maybe just again, they felt like they needed to add a little something because, like I said, studios then all seem to want an origin story.
This movie is 20 minutes longer than the original.
There you go, and it's all origin story.
All right, Rob. Well, as we start to maybe wrap up this conversation about our Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I will say, like I said, kind of mentioned earlier, I found Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to be much more digestible this time through.
That's good. I'm glad that it aged well
I
for you.
I didn't hate it. Again, I feel like I'm still a guy. I think I'm going to go back to the original when I really want to scratch this itch. There's just it's just more iconic. The Wonka coming out. The cane getting stuck in the ground. I just love that introduction to this character because it's so simple, yet it tells you this guy's off his rocker. The wrong, sir. You are wrong, sir. That explosion on Charlie is just so effective, and I just love it so much. And then I love how Charlie reacts to it. Some of that stuff just hits better for me, and I don't think it's a nostalgia thing necessarily. I just think it's like I just prefer this version. Like I just prefer how they did that. I just like that. So I think I'm going to go back there. But I do appreciate that the book does, or that the original version does follow the book a little bit more, that it does some stuff different. I think if I was just going to be the absolute toxic fan, I would say it's different, it's more true to the book, but that doesn't mean it's better.
And that's fair. I think it would not to call you out, but I do feel like nostalgia probably does color it more than you probably realize. Because I know it does for me, and that's why, even though I am a fan of the book and I do appreciate the new one, I will say the nostalgia is why I definitely prefer the original. I do think there are, like Gene Wilder, like I said, he is the personification of the heart of gold. So it's like when you watch him on screen, he's magnetic.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily Willy Wonka. You know what I mean? So especially if you're, like I said, looking at it from the source material, and I do think that there are things, like I said, that the remake does do better. Now, as I said multiple times already, I will always go back to the original, just like you,
right?
Over the remake. I will say that, even as a fan of the book, that nostalgia pull is just it's there, and and I'm not even saying it's a better movie, not better movie. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Just for me, I prefer the original because that was the one I watched first.
Sure.
But but as far as the central theme of what we're talking about, I will say the new one is a better movie in regards to the source material. As a source material remake, it is a better movie because it does follow the source material. I think it captures the source material closer to than what the original does.
But that's not really a standard for judging a movie. Like they didn't make it like they didn't make the original one to be like this is as close as we can get to the book, and then the second one's like, well, we can make it closer to the book. Like
I
they
think
used
that's
it
probably,
as
I mean,
they
I
used
think
it
they
as
probably
inspiration.
did. I mean,
I
the
don't
second
think
one,
so.
the remake, I'm sure they did. I'm sure Tim Burton went into this
Well, I
saying,
know,
I
but I'm
love
saying-
the original,
No,
but
I'm
I want to
saying-
get closer to the book. I'm sure that's what Tim Burton
No, that's not
said.
what I'm saying. Though what I'm saying is the original didn't do that. Like the original wasn't saying,
Oh, right.
this is
right,
as
right, right.
close as we can do to get to the book.
Sure.
And then you say, well, this one does that better. Like I think you're
But I'm saying-
comparing. You're saying that the second one does something better than the first one that the first one wasn't trying to do.
Well, that's not, well, fair enough. But again, like I'm saying, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get your point. I'm just saying that, as far as being closer to the source material, the remake
Like
is the
there's
better
a
book.
reason why to make it.
Right.
They had a good
right.
reason. It
had-
wasn't a cash grab.
Correct.
It wasn't the cash
there
grab.
you go. There you go. To refute Gene Wilder, and
Yes.
as much as I love Gene Wilder, this was not just simply a cash
I agree
grab.
with that.
Like I said, there were definitely cash grab elements to it. I mentioned like the merchandising element
Sure.
to it, and with movies like this, there's always going to be. But yes, I would not call this simply just a cash grab. I do believe that Tim Burton, having reverence for the original, having reverence for the book, decided to say, okay, I'm going to take this movie and I'm going to make it as close to the book as I can.
Yeah.
Plus adding a little bit more, maybe too much, as we said. There's definitely fair on that front. But, as far as, right, as a source material, so for me, what I will say is, because I mean, I'm not going to say that the original didn't want to stay as close to the source material as they felt like they wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't like, well, we're damned to the source material. We don't care about the book, whatever. Like,
I think they're like, Gene Wilder, you can do whatever you want with Wonka. We're good with it.
that's probably
yeah.
true. I mean, that's probably true.
Yeah.
But again, it's
We don't
Gene
care if it-
Wilder. So
we
you're
don't
like,
care if it
"All right, you do what
deviates a little
you do
bit,
you,
yeah.
man. But yeah.
And it worked.
Right, exactly. And to be fair,
For the
Burton
time,
probably
yeah.
said the same thing to Depp.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
said that's
'cause,
not exactly the book either.
Yeah, because I mean, this launched a 5-movie run that they did together, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I don't know if I would go back to Alice in Wonderland and feel as forgiving
I don't
with
even
that.
remember if I ever watched Alice in Wonderland, to be perfectly frank.
I definitely didn't watch the sequel.
Yeah, well, I did. I'd forgotten there was a sequel. There you go. Let's see. I'm gonna look it up real fast. Where is it? Yeah, they did. It was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Oh, it was more. They did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They did Corpse Bride. They did Sweeney Todd. They did Alice in Wonderland. They did Dark Shadows. Yep. So
Yeah.
they did 5 movies together from 2005 to 2012.
Yeah, they were all about that.
Yeah. So they were attached at the hip for a good thick minute.
Somebody
there,
had
as
something on the
Street
other.
Graduate would say. But yeah, so overall, like I said, I will always go back to the original. That I'm with you with that 100%. But yeah, I will defend the
Yeah.
remake at least to a certain extent.
All right. Well, we are pretty much done talking about Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Just
Both
combine them
chocolate
all in
factories,
there.
all kinds of chocolate factories.
But the audience is not done. I'm going to pull my best Veruca Salt and be like, I want you to like this podcast. I want you to subscribe to it. And I want you to leave a 5-star review because if you do, we'll read it live on air. Also, if you email me,
I want it
Rob,
now.
you can email us at carrayrob@gmail.com or you can reach out to us at Blue Sky at carrayrob.
Absolutely. If you would also share the podcast, we would very much be appreciative of that. We are trying to grow our listening audience, and any help we could get would be very much appreciated. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you are listening to us on, by all means, let us know what you think of the remake and original of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Which one was your favorite? Did you hate one? Did you love one? Did you hate them both? Did you like the book more than either? We definitely want to know. We will be back next week with Say Hello to My Little Film, and it will be back to Ray.
Yep.
And I am excited to see what he's got.
I think it's going to be fun.
You think so?
I think it's going to be fun.
You say that sometimes, and I don't necessarily believe you.
Fair. I think this one's... It's fun for me.
There you go. We will be back then in 2 weeks with this month's Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where Ray and I will be looking back on the classic Toy Soldiers.
Not as fun as you would think with the name of toy soldier.
That's
in it.
true. Starring Sean Astin, about a group of kids that are taken hostage by terrorists at the prep school that they are currently attending. So definitely not a fun movie.
That'll be fun.
We will be back
For
next
us.
month, though, with another copy of a copy. We want to make sure you are back, and we are going to be doing a special Halloween episode since it
Ooh.
will be October, scary season. So we are going to be doing a triple. It's going to be a copy of a copy of a copy. We are doing 3 movies for October.
Ain't no one got time for that.
Oh, we're going to find time for
Okay.
that because we are going to be watching the 1922 silent German expressionist vampire classic Nosferatu, directed by Mr. F.W. Murnau. We are going to be doing the 1979 remake by Werner Herzog, Nosferatu the Vampire. And then we are also going to be watching the 2024 Robert Eggers remake, Nosferatu, starring Bill Skarsgård and Lily Rose Depp.
We're gonna watch all of those.
We are going to watch 3
I'm gonna
movies.
put 3 TVs on at the same time.
That would be a very interesting way to watch it because you can see how everything is the same or different. Granted, the original is like an hour long, so
That's why we can fit it in.
Exactly. But you are not going to want to miss any one of our Car RayRob shows, so definitely don't do that. But until then, this is Car RayRob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
A copy of a copy. 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 A copy of a copy.